Alright, this is Brit the Stroked here. Now I've not been feeling particularly inspired to do videos the last few days, but something I saw in the news last night prompted me to pick the camera up and to do a quick vlog. I was watching the BBC News and it was a story about Radovan Karadzic. This is the Bosnian Serb war general who's currently on trial in The Hague for genocide and war crimes. This is the guy who earlier in the year was found hiding under cover. He had a massive bushy beard and he was masquerading as an alternative healer because he'd been on the run and wanted for war crimes for years. So yeah, the news story was about him, but I'm not actually going to comment on him or the war itself. I have to admit I've not done enough research to feel comfortable commenting on the war in Bosnia. This vlog is about media manipulation, and specifically American and British media manipulation. Because I don't know whether you've noticed, but often when they run a story about the war in Bosnia and they talk about the massacres in Srebrenica or the events in Sarajevo, they'll show this image of this guy, and it's quite a shocking image. I'll put it up on the screen now, and I'm sure it'll be familiar to some people, but it's of a very tall and very thin guy, in fact a completely emaciated looking guy, standing behind barbed wire. And this was built up to be an image from a Serb death camp. And you know, you look at the image and it does appear to be the image of a death camp, and it raises all kinds of images in your mind. It looks like something from the Nazi era. That's the association that you immediately have when you see this image. Looks like a Jewish person completely emaciated behind a barbed wire fence. And this is what the media built it up to be. An image of a Serb death camp. And they're still using it now. As I say, I saw it last night on the BBC, and I saw it earlier in the year when Karadzic was found. I saw it on CNN as well. So it's repeatedly used as an image of the horrors of the horrors committed by the Serbs. Anyway, I did some research into this a while ago, and I'm going to put a link in the sidebar to a very interesting documentary. I mean, it's not a mainstream documentary at all, it's a completely underground documentary. But I really suggest you watch this documentary and you'll see this image in a completely different light. Now I'll kind of sum up what the documentary is about, because I know there are loads of people who don't have the time to watch the documentary. But basically, the documentary is by some guy who was part of another film crew that day. The film that was taken of this guy standing behind the barbed wire fence was, I think, an ITN film crew, so obviously a British film crew. But there was another film crew there that day, and they saw what happened. And the guy who narrates the documentary, that I've put a link to in the sidebar, is from this other film crew. And he talked about how the ITN film crew completely manipulated this situation. And it looks like it's being filmed from the outside of a camp, and it looks like these people are contained behind a fence. But what this guy says is, the people were actually on the outside of a fence, and they weren't contained by this barbed wire at all. The ITN film crew basically set up the cameras so it looked like they were behind a barbed wire fence when in fact they weren't. And the image of this emaciated looking guy, who looks like he's been the victim of starvation and really brutal treatment, the guy says that he was actually in good health, and it was just the way he looked. He'd suffered some kind of chest deformity as a child, and this was just his appearance. He was very tall and very thin, and he had some kind of chest deformity, so he hadn't been starved at all. And if you watch the documentary, you'll see footage from this supposed death camp of the other people who aren't starved in any way. It's just this one guy, and he just happens to look like that. So there's even footage of the people talking and saying that they were being treated well, because it wasn't a death camp, it was a refugee centre, and these people were basically being fed there and being housed there because they'd been forced to leave the homes because of the war. So yeah, check out the documentary. It just gives a whole different view to this image that we see in the Western media, and which is presented as the victim of a concentration camp. Watch the documentary and you'll find out that the Western media actually manipulated this scene, set it up, and the truth of the situation was wholly different to what we're led to believe in the West. No surprise there. We know that the media completely manipulates us and shows images to program us to think one thing, to program us to go along with the agenda. Now, I've no doubt that terrible things happened in that war, but I've no doubt that they happened on both sides. In war, you know, it's never a clear-cut story. There's never one side is completely innocent and the other side completely guilty. You know, there's always atrocities on both sides. And I've no doubt that the old world order, meaning the US and the UK, I've no doubt that there's some agenda there, some geopolitical agenda, and that they're trying to paint the Serbs and Karadzic in particular as being the ultimate in evil for some other agenda. As I say, I've not done the full research there, but it would be interesting to do that, and I intend to. If you've got any information about that, then please do drop a comment or make a video response. That's it for tonight. Hope you're having a good week, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.